you can't change, where you feel your heart breaking and you're thinking it's the end. That's where grace begins.
All right, welcome back to Season 2 of Grace Begins, where this is a podcast where we love to share people's journeys of where they found God in their life, some of the hard moments, the realizations where people found God on their path and on their journey. And so it's exciting to bring so many great guests this season to talk about their journeys and their stories of redemption and their comeback stories. And this is really, really exciting. And I love it because everyone has a different story. And this podcast is here to strictly inspire you. This is not a Bible thumping podcast. This is not a crazy preaching. This is a podcast of journeys just like my own, where we are all imperfect people and we all need God and we all need His grace and mercy every day. So welcome for Season 2. We're excited. So I want to introduce my first guest. I'm really excited for a couple different reasons, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. But he's an incredible Christian artist. His name is Joel Vaughn. And I want to tell you first how I got to meet him. He has a beautiful song out, which now, as you listen, is our new theme song for Grace Begins. And when I came across his song, I reached out to him and was so excited and couldn't believe that he lived right here in Nashville. So we met up and I'm like, I really want to use this song. And he's like, absolutely. I just felt like it was so meant to be. And so that now we have this exciting new theme song. And it's a blessing to me to be able to have this song. It's so beautiful. I encourage everyone to listen to it. We'll be posting the videos and tagging a lot throughout the season. So I want to thank you for that. And welcome Joel Vaughn, Christian music artist, quite a few albums, quite a few singles, and he's got so much more going on, but he also has a really incredible story. So welcome, Joel.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah. No, it's great. I love that you're here in Nashville. I love everything you're doing, and I see you have a lot more exciting stuff happening, and we're going to definitely get into that. But what I like is that, we share, there's a lot of different stories that have been shared on here. And, someone reminded me once that not every comeback story has to be a broken, battered, beat up life story, right? Like sometimes it's you can be on a great path the whole time and still have something change. And that's what I really, really like about your story. So I would love for you to share us just a little bit about Joel, where it started and what led you to where you are now. So let's get into that a little bit. Tell us from the beginning.
Absolutely. The beginning. So way back in the year of our Lord, 1986. My dad was in the Air Force. And so we moved around a lot. I was born in South Carolina. And I remember moving from there when I was itty bitty. My memories go back as far as like 3.5, 4 years old. And I remember leaving there and going back to their home state of Alabama. We moved there so my dad could finish up his tour of duty in South Korea. So we did 2 tours when I was really little. And after that, we moved to Mississippi. And that's the point where I really started listening to music and found out what my favorite songs were. And that's also the year that I found Jesus, or a couple of years in, found Jesus. And so when I was about 6 years old, I remember sitting in the congregation. My mom was a worship leader. She played piano. She played for the youth, and she played on Sundays. And so Wednesday nights we would have services. And at a very, very young age, I just felt this pull to submit my heart to God and to enter a relationship with Him. As weird as it sounds, I was so young. It's like, did I even know what that meant, right? But I knew something was stirring in me, and so my mom was leading this song, made famous by a recording artist who's been passed away for a number of years, named Keith Green, called "Create in Me a Clean Heart, O God." And so she had been leading that night. And so after she was finished, I went to her and I told her, I was like, "Mom, I think I want to give my heart to Jesus." And she was just excited, and she brought me to the altar and prayed with me. And I remember it was in Amory, Mississippi in 1992. And it was just that was the moment. But after that, I started getting involved in singing with my family. I was in a very musical family, so we were like the Osmonds, but not. The Christian. Anyway, so we sang together, and we didn't really tour or anything like that, but we would go to different churches and sing special music and stuff like that. My mom was always the worship leader. My dad eventually retired from the Air Force, and he started working as a truck driver, but then wanted to be a pastor. So he was like a bivocational pastor / truck driver for a while, and we would always do special music at churches. And that's really where I got started. It was around 1993 started. I started singing specials in the church. That's what we called them. We would take cassette tapes and take them up front of our favorite Christian recording artist. And it would be an instrumental of their popular song that you heard on the radio, and you would sing along to it. Kind of like karaoke for church, I guess you could say. So that's where I started.
That.
I sang to like 12 people in a tiny little church in Albertville, Alabama.
Wow.
And so that's where I started. And from there, I started leading worship with my brother Joey. I was the youngest of 5. So my siblings moved off, and it was just me and my brother, and we started leading worship together. I picked up the drums, he picked up the guitar. We made our own band, and we would just play for people. That kind of escalated into, I want to know how to play the guitar because I feel like I'm getting left behind. So I taught myself how to play guitar at 14. And so we just kind of traded off like doing that sort of thing. Then I met my wife in 2003, got married in 2006. So we've been married almost 19 years now.
Oh, amazing.
2 kids. And through that entire time, I've been doing music, and that's kind of the short end of the story. But I will say, like, my life wasn't the easiest in terms of, in a lot of different terms, but we moved around a lot. I had to get to know people really, really, really fast because I never knew, because my dad being in the Air Force, were we going to be somewhere else in the next 3 months? And it got to the point where it's like, well, why even get to know someone? It's like, so I started getting a little bit isolated even as a teenager to the point where I homeschooled from 9th grade to 12th grade. I don't know if that was the right decision, but that was the decision that was made. But, I was one of 5 kids, so we grew up in a family of 7. My parents did have a very hard transitional time from the Air Force into civilian life, and they did lose everything in the early 90s. And so we grew up pretty poor. At one point, we were living in a 2-bedroom trailer in Alabama with all 7 of us packed in like sardines. And it was rough. It was not fun. But I learned in that life that God provides, that God would take care of us. When we had very, very little, somehow we were able to eat. Somehow we were able to pay the bills and get by. And that's kind of translated into my life as an adult. It's like we've had times of absolute, like, just, he's provided for us, but we've also had times where it was lean. And, there's financially and in work or in times of just like my career, it's like sometimes God gives us abundance, and sometimes he takes away too. And so I learned that pretty early on. So that's kind of helped me sustain, I guess, a 20-year career of like highs and lows and stuff. So that's a little bit of my story. But we can dig into it if you want.
No, I do. And I get it. Like, I came from a military family, Air Force dad too. And I know that can be, I was the youngest, so I didn't have to move around. Although when I got turned into an adult, I seemed to move all the time anyway. I felt like that's when my gypsy phase started.
Same.
You would have thought
my
that
parents didn't know how to stop moving.
Yeah. So I get that. I was raised by a single mom, 7 kids too. And thankful that she, taught us about Jesus in a very early age, because I feel like that was truly my saving grace. Throughout so many things, is that she instilled that in us. So I get that. I understand that it can cause a lot of things in life. The moving and
it's a lot of turmoil.
Living in hard times. Yeah. And so I get that. So I want to know what kind of led to this next chapter, because you're probably feeling like, okay, I've got it going on. I've got I'm getting into music, and then what? Tell us a little bit about that after.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, I got married in 2006. At around about a year before that point, my brother, my wife, and I, and a couple of other people in this worship group that we were in at West Texas A&M University in Canyon, Texas, near Amarillo. If nobody knows where that is, it's in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. I've been there.
So I went to college there, and so we kind of on accident started touring regionally, so to speak. They would send us to churches to lead worship for these little churches that didn't have they had big youth groups, but they didn't have the big worship that you saw at conferences like Passion and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So they sent us out to kind of do that thing for their events. They called them Disciple Nows. And so we did those for a number of years, still do them actually. And from there, I kind of stepped not out of that, but more into a full-time staff position at a church. So I started working at a church and doing that and finishing college all at the same time. So I was doing 3. I don't think I've ever slowed down enough to not do less than 3 things at once. I don't know if that's high capacity or stupidity or what, but like I can't stop myself from doing too many things. So we did that for a while, and eventually I went full time at a church. The beginning of my story was like I got saved at an early age, right? As a teenager, I kind of struggled, was a little bit rebellious. Because, things were tumultuous at home.
Yeah.
And so it was one of those things where it was like, I want to do the right thing. I want to be the man or become the man that God's called me to be. But right now I'm struggling with how things are, and things just don't seem fair, right?
Yeah.
And so I had a little bit of selfishness in there, and still do. I'm not perfect. Grace begins.
Yeah.
And so like I had some issues that I kind of took with me growing up into adulthood and into my marriage.
Yeah.
And so that created a little bit of a rift between not just me and my wife, but me and any of my relationships. My full-time job at part-time job at first at the first church that I led worship at. That job ended up ending abruptly because I hadn't dealt with some past pain and some trauma and stuff that had happened all through childhood. And so I took that with me, like I said, into my marriage and into my life. And it all kind of came to head in 2011 when I realized that things were getting real. I'd been married for 5 years at this point. My daughter was on the way. She's 13 or almost 14 now, probably 14 by the time this podcast releases.
Yeah.
She was about to be born, and I was full time at this very large church that had, I can't even remember, 11 campuses at the time, and I was one of like 11 or 13 worship leaders. Because we were spread so thin that they needed us, one person at each campus, and they would swap us around and that sort of thing. So I went from, just kind of this happy-go-lucky floating to like leading worship at this church to this thing being a college student to suddenly life gets real, and I have all of this past trauma and this past pain that I've never dealt with, right? And so that's when I found that my life kind of came crashing. And so I was in a staff meeting one day in 2011, and I just told people like, I don't trust anyone. And they were like, you want to expound on that? And I was like, I really don't. I just need you to know that I don't trust you. I don't trust you. I don't trust anyone in this room. And I'm dealing with something heavy. And that kind of led to, hey, maybe we should take this conversation out to another room. And so we did. And that led to me stepping away from being a worship leader and led me to just being out of the ministry for almost 2 straight years. And I found that I needed to work on who Joel is, because I started early on singing on a platform at 7 years old in 1993. And that's where I found my value and found my worth, because like things at home weren't always great. Things were pretty difficult, and I'm the youngest, and I'm fighting for a scrap of bread essentially.
Yeah.
Not that bad, but my mom always took care of us, thankfully, and my dad too. But I dealt with all of that trauma, and just kind of the way I dealt with it was I just kind of shoved it in a bag, pushed it way down until it was just, that box was just about to explode. And on that day in 2011, it just kind of all went and it exploded. And that's when I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't stand on a stage and pretend like I have for the last 20 years or whatever, and act like I have it all together so that people can worship God. Because right now, I don't even feel it in me. I feel like I'm in a desert, and I need to let this go. And so I let that go, and there was a process of where I just walked through restoration, essentially, for 18 months, and was like, I need to know who I am apart from this talent that I have, and apart from, people thinking Joel's a great singer, Joel's this or that, and I could hide behind that and that mask because I really didn't want people to know who I was on a deeper level. Because I was ashamed of who I was, right? And I really didn't believe, I believed in God's grace, but I didn't believe that people really extended that grace because I had seen how other people had been treated, right?
Yeah.
And so I was just like, I've had enough. I can't hold it anymore. I'll let it go. And I was just Joel the dad, Joel the husband for 18 months, and I worked in IT. And I was like, God, this was my dream job, to be a worship leader at a church like this, to finally quote unquote arrive or whatever. And I realized it's the platform ain't it. Take that away. I remember we were in a meeting one time. It's like, if God took everything away, he took away my ability to sing. He took away my ability to play the guitar. He took away my ability to stand in front of people and talk. Would I be fine with that? Would I be fine with being a chosen and loved child of God? And I had to really answer that for myself. And so I took it all away for myself. I was like, I'm walking away, because I would rather find myself in him than chase down the dream of being a famous recording artist, a famous worship leader, or whatever.
Yeah.
And then find at the end of that rainbow that there's nothing.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people that think that, like, if I get A, B, C, and D together, if it all lines up, then I'll be fulfilled. And I can even tell you now, as someone who's semi-successful, whatever, you get to that point where it's like, oh, I got the single on the radio. I heard my song on that big radio station. Yeah. I got the charting position. At the end of it, it's like, those are fleeting and people forget about you, and it ends, right? Yeah. And so I'm glad that I went through what I went through in 2011 to know that, like, at the end of the day, all of this can be taken away in a second. It really can.
Yeah.
But am I okay with that? And can I find my worth and my value in knowing that I'm a chosen and adopted child of God?
Yeah.
And so that's a part of my story. What's funny is 2 years after that, a friend of mine named Glenn, we weren't friends at this point. He just called me. He heard about my story. He was like, hey, come write at my studio. And I was like, I don't know if you heard, but like, music was kind of the thing that I put too much stock in. I felt like it nearly destroyed my life. I don't really want to do anything. He's like, yeah, but I heard you were kind of writing songs. I was like, yeah, for myself. And he's like, well, come to my studio and, just see. And I was like, that's kind of weird, but whatever. And so I went to his studio and I was like, oh, I don't know if this is good for me. I really love everything about this room because I had a degree in broadcast communication and music production and stuff like that. And so I was like, oh, I love all this stuff. This is an incredible studio. And so I would come in, I would write some songs on his piano, and I would write on the piano at my church, and those would just be for me. And so he made me a deal. He was like, hey, what if you recorded an entire album here? And I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. He was like, pray about it, think about it. And he came up with some terms that made some sense. And so I took the songs that I wrote during that phase of like 2 years of restoration, and I took those and I recorded them. And so he helped me record that album essentially for free. There was, some terms at the end of it, like pay him back for like studio time and stuff like that. But essentially, like, he fronted the cost and was like, hey, don't worry about any of that. We'll take care of that later. I feel like God's called me to help you get this music out there. And so we did. And I walked away from that job in 2013 because it got to a point where, they helped me in a lot of different ways, but a lot of the things that were going on, and I don't know that it's any one person's fault, ended up being spiritually abusive in a way. And so I had to separate myself from that place and walk away. And it was very difficult. Yeah. I actually didn't really have a choice. It was one of those like, hey, turn in your computer and turn in your keys. You're done today. Yeah. We'll see you later. And then it was communicated to the rest of the church body that I had decided to pursue something else, music and whatever. And I was like, that is not really the truth. Yeah. And I was pushed out. Yeah. And so I just kind of went with it, and I was, shocked and kind of horrified, because in that moment we lost a lot of our friends. We lost our church home. And so I was like, God, I don't know what you're doing, but like suddenly this guy wants me to write at his studio. Suddenly I lost my job, and I have a daughter who's 2 years old at this point to take care of. And I have a wife I need to provide for. And I had 98 dates. Some of that was leading worship. Some of that was doing concerts. People just started calling me out of the woodwork left and right. And so God provided, and I was like, okay, so this, I guess, is my sign that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I started leading worship for local church bodies and started doing concerts and sharing the songs that I was writing in that desert era of my life. And a year later, I was offered a recording contract. And so here we are.
So, and that is God's grace.
Yeah.
I mean, and so many pieces of that. And I think that I know for myself, I relate. I know so many people listening can relate to that his grace shows up in ways that we think it's like the hardest time in our life, but he has to bring us through some things first to get our attention. Right. And sometimes it comes in all sorts of different ways. And I know for me, it was his grace showed up so many times. There were so many different things where I thought my world was falling apart, but it wasn't. It was him putting it in the right together. And then once you make that decision to move where he's telling you to move, whatever direction that is, then the blessings start flowing. He starts showing you. And that's when you know. I want to just touch on where you talked about, I think, the shame, because I think that's something that, and I think our society sometimes that builds some of that, it's like you have to put on this mask of perfection all the time.
Oh, yeah.
You have to, and you just don't, you put it on for yourself, but you put it on for other people because you don't want to deal with someone seeing that you're not perfect, especially when you're leading worship in a church. That's got to be even. I grew up in a religion that was all about perfection. It was. Right. I mean, even leaving that church, some days I think in my head, I'm never going to make it to heaven. Like they just pound it in your head so hard that perfection, and it's like none of us will ever. And that's why when I discovered the word grace and what that really meant in his grace was like, no, he already knows I'm not perfect. He already knows it. I need to admit that. And then I need to let him work through me and help carry me the rest of the way. And that's where I always feel like that's where the true relationship with Christ begins, is in that moment of understanding his love and his grace, because then you can work together. When you feel like he's judging you constantly, when you feel like he's against you, he doesn't care about you, he doesn't love you, you can never have that relationship. You really have to be, and I think that the beauty in being humbled sometimes is he has to lower you so low that you have no other choice but to go to him, right? That's how he gets our attention sometimes. So I always tell people when you're going through something, I'm like, just trust in him. He one thing I've learned is that he just loves us way too much. Jeremiah 29:11, it's always just been my favorite, that his plans for us are good. So I have to remember that when things are going bad in my life, half the time they're self-induced, probably. You know what I mean? They're probably me creating them. Yeah. And it's like, it's not him. He's not up there just, with that, hourglass in the end, just trying to torture us. Yeah. Like he that's not what he wants. He's up there trying to save us constantly. And we're the one that keeps throwing ourselves back in that hole. And so I think that, I hope people really are reminded that we all have shame of some sort. Yeah. We all have trauma. I mean, to live in this world, it's trauma to be birthed in this world. I mean, it starts there. I mean, we're really a mess from the beginning. And so I love that you were able to see that, address that, and that it took you a couple of years. Sometimes it takes people going through alcoholism, it takes people going through abuse, it takes people going through a lot of things, and I look at that's God's grace, that you didn't have to be tortured. I feel like I grew up very religiously, but I was definitely a wild child for a long time. And I look back and I'm like, I wish I knew what I knew now and I would have got it then. But we also know that things have to happen for a reason, and things build us and to who we are today. And so no regrets of things in the past, but it's a lot easier having him involved. My life is a lot better when I let him run it and I surrender versus me trying to control it all the time and trust, that he's got a better outcome no matter how dark it is. And I've been in some dark moments, how messy it is, that we have to remember that he is going to pull us out if we just let him and just surrender and follow the path with him. It's, it's, being a publicist, it's easy to get into the worldly things. The world,
Yeah.
it's hard. And when you're, successful and fame's coming at you, I mean, the adversary runs 24/7. He never quits on us. He comes after us constantly. And I think it's easy to get in that comfort zone thinking, but I think that's one of his tools too. So I think God, in order for us to grow, has to throw some things at us sometimes.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's painful.
Yeah.
It's
very.
painful. I mean, I remember in that process, and I'm not saying that what happened was right.
Yeah.
But I remember in that process, there was an individual who was not my boss, but an oversight. It was kind of hard organizationally to tell who your boss was because there were so many people. Told me that, hey, I feel like you need to sit in the audience during worship and watch this worship leader lead worship and stand on the stage and do your job. Like, I think you need to sit there and feel the weight of, all of that. Like, anything that you've done, and this wasn't right. What was done? I'm not advocating this or saying that this is what should happen, but it brought me to a place of humility that I felt so low that I was sitting in the audience going like, they're right. I don't deserve to be up there. Like, I'm watching this. Like, he's a better leader than me, and so I just felt like I was so squashed down, and looking back, I'm like, why did God allow that? Like, was I so bad that like I needed that? And I don't think that's what it was at all. But like, God did allow it to happen. It was a thing that happened in my life, one of many things that happened. But I will say, like, I can look and see, like, yes, in one way, it definitely made me realize that, like, one, I am not all that. I am, and I don't just mean that on a talent level. I mean that as a human being. Like, I am obviously not better than anyone, and that was made abundantly clear there. But I learned after that, it's like I was in therapy for about 18 months as well. Went to my therapist and told them what happened, and she was like, that is not okay. Like, you don't do that. She's like, listen, like, God is humbling you right now, but he's going to turn this around and he's going to raise you up to do something great if you will humble yourself before him. Like, do what you feel like God is calling you to do. If that's to be like, God, I lay it all down at your feet. Like, my best laid plans are just absolute garbage compared to what you have for me. He will raise you up. And it wasn't even like, all right, so I'm going to do all of this because I believe on the other side of this, God's got something better for me. It wasn't even so much that. It was just trusting him through it day to day. It was like clawing through a tunnel, looking for a pinhole of light and just like, all right, there it is. I'm focusing on that. That's the good. That's where God wants me. He wants me on the other side of whatever this is. And so, just to kind of echo that, like, sometimes he does bring you through situations. Sometimes for some people, it's like, how low is your low? I know what my low was. And some people, it's like, they didn't have to go through something quite as difficult because maybe they didn't need that, and that's where I'm like, man, I must be a really difficult person to work with. But God knows my heart. God knows what it took and what it still takes, because I'm still not perfect. And none of us are. None of us ever will be. I'm not great. That's why I depend daily on God's grace, because one day I'm flying high and the next I feel like I fell off a mountaintop and like, where did that go wrong? And sometimes it was self-induced, It's like, sometimes things happen, and you were no cause of it, and you get depressed and you make bad decisions in that depression. And so then it's self-induced. But through all of that, realizing like, okay, God, I'm here. I don't know why you have me here, but I'm trusting you through this because I believe that you're going to make something beautiful through it. So,
yeah, I love that. I love it. And, I hope that more people understand that, because I think in the lowest lows, it's like, I was reading something the other day, and it's like, even when you don't feel like praying, pray. Even if you feel ashamed, even if you're mad at yourself about something, or you've sinned, or you just pray anyway. Pray anyway. That's like the adversary doesn't want you. He wants you separated. He wants you so separated.
Go into things that you don't need to go to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's how addictions happen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where he wants you at that low point, to where you're seeking things out somewhere else. And that's why I love that God, no matter what, continues to pull us out, like that little video where the lamb like keeps jumping back in there. Have you ever seen that, where he jumps into the riverbank? He has
like,
to go
come
back,
on, man.
And he jumps right back in. And
he
then
didn't get it.
That's us. Yeah. I feel like that's us constantly. He's like, that's all right. I'm used to it. I'll pull you all out. And then I think that is where, when I discovered grace, was just, it's his love, that unconditional love that you have for your children. I have for my children. Like that unconditional love. I don't care how many mistakes they make. I'm still going to love them. I'm still going to give to them. I'm still going to bless them. It doesn't matter, because I love them so much. And I know what they could be if they just keep fighting. And it's like, you've got that person that he's that person that defends you to the end, that will be with you to the end. When you feel like the whole world's turned their back on you and nobody else wants to be your friend, nobody wants to help you, everyone's judging you, you've always got that. So I always want to just encourage people to just, no matter what you're going through, don't let that slip. Don't let that relationship go, because without it, I feel like we're nothing. I think without it, we're absolutely nothing. I feel like I couldn't make it. Yeah.
Like at all.
Yeah. Whenever I hear stories of people who are atheists or something, I'm like, how? Like, what a sad state to live in. I look forward to my relationship, even my low points and sins and mistakes. And I still look forward to, at least I have that at the end of the day. If I have nothing else, I have that. And so it's very hard. It does make me sad when I see people who choose that path. But you know what? I always tell them, you know what? You may not recognize God, but God recognizes you. He still loves you if you don't believe in him. So yeah, I think it's just, I think that people need to be reminded, no matter what situation is, whether you're going through the hardest thing in your life, you've been in prison or you've done drugs, or you're just at a church, you know what I mean? It happens to anyone. I mean, we see pastors falling constantly, all the time. And I think that we're going to see more fall, probably.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. And so I think that, but those are still God's children. That's one thing that I've really had to work on, even with myself lately, is that I don't want anyone to judge me, but I'm pretty quick to judge, and I'm pretty quick to God. And I have to really, I find that God is like, that is not okay. You can't truly be like me if you're not giving people unconditional love, and you're not, you can't love them and gossip about them. You can't. So it's just like, we all have these things. And so I hope these stories just remind people that they're not alone, no matter what somebody looks like on a stage or a platform or on social media, or what their marriage looks like. It's not always, nobody is perfect, and no one's got it perfect. And I think that growing up for me, we grew up very poor in the Mormon church, and we were just so poor that I was judged constantly. I mean, those girls would make fun of my dresses, and I'm like, now I dress better than you all. No, just see, God gave me a better wardrobe. No, but it's just like it was painful, but I'm so thankful that my mom taught me like about the gospel, about God, because I remember I still didn't care that those girls were mean. I didn't care. I just loved going to church because I love the feeling. Like, we didn't grow up with an easy life. And that's where at least I always found peace, even though that's not the church that, but God was there. God's where, it doesn't matter. You could be at a 7-Eleven parking lot and he's going to be with you. You know what I mean? And give you that spiritual moment. You can be in any church building and he's going to give you that moment when you need it. Like you'll recognize him. So yeah, I think it's a beautiful story, and I'm so glad that you were able to come and share it with everyone today. And I've just loved getting to know you. I love your music. I'm a huge fan now. I've actually really worked really hard to get any kind of secular music out of my life, and my mornings are now spent. Not that I don't every once in a while. I love country. I still listen
to secular music.
Yeah, I'm not saying I don't, but I've in the mornings I've tried to start it off with gospel music and daily devotionals. Those daily devotionals feed my soul every single day, versus when you're listening to some kind of, whatever music. And it's just like, those have been the changes for me. Yeah. And so I appreciate artists like you who are making the effort to put something out there for people like me that need that strength every morning, that need that pick me up, that need that beautiful message in that song, and something that lifts me instead of maybe takes me down. Right. So I just want to appreciate
There's
you.
a lot of that out there too.
Yeah. And God's been doing great things. So tell us what's next. You've got a lot of things happening. I've seen so much action on your social media. I'm so happy for you. So tell us what's next, where people can find you, and give us a little.
Yeah. So what's next is we're releasing, and I guess we being me, I have a team of people that help me. My wife being probably number one. She is my de facto videographer. So if you ever see any music videos, that's her shooting most of it.
I love it.
She didn't sign up for that, by the way. I guess she kind of did when she married me.
Yeah.
So I have a bunch of songs coming out, an album coming out late summer. Next month, we have a song called Turn releasing, and another song following that called Testify. I'll be out on the road all of March, April, and May. So just look out for tour dates on my website and on my Instagram. That's usually where I'm most active, sometimes Facebook too. But my website is www.joelvaughnmusic.com. All of my social media is Joel Vaughn Music, one word. So if it's Instagram.com/Joel Vaughn Music. Same thing with YouTube and everything else. And you can find everything that's happening. You can find our tour dates on my website, joelvaughnmusic.com. And just follow us there and see where we're at. We're heading out on a radio tour again. We did one in January, doing another one, I think either the middle or end of March. So we got a lot going on. I have to have people tell me, like, hey, you're going to be here and there. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. And keep my head on straight here lately. But it's good. It's good to be busy.
No, that's good. And that's God. I think I see God just moving right now. I think he's moving a lot of people. And I think you're going to reach so many more people and share your beautiful music with everyone. I just encourage you to follow him, go check him out. And of course, the Grace Begins song, which is now our theme song. I cannot tell you thank you enough for that song. It's powerful.
I didn't write all that all by myself. My buddies Matt Armstrong and AJ Pruse co-wrote that, and Matt is just masterful with lyrics and AJ with production, and so I brought an idea and they made it 10 times better, and that's the song that so
it's amazing. Well, thank you all for that song, because it's just one of the most beautiful songs I've heard. And I'm not just saying that, it really is. This was all the right timing. I really feel like God's timing in all of this, and I want to help share all your music. So
thank you.
Definitely do that on social media. So all right, well, I appreciate you, Joel. This was great. Thank you for taking the time today to come and hang out here, and we'll keep everyone updated on everything he's got going on. So thanks a lot. We'll see you next episode.
Heartbreaking, and you're thinking it's the